Welcome to the In It 5 The Art podcast. This is the first episode. This is with the fucking legend, DeeZe. And DeeZe, man, I'm so stoked to have you on here and to dive into a bunch of shit. Just really talk about, your story, talk about the market, talk about sober summer, um, really
Sober
just
summer.
whatever. Yeah. So, dude, again, welcome. And thanks for coming on, bro.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. You've been a big supporter of our pod and you've been a longtime friend. So, of course, when you asked, I had to say yes. I am coming from like some sinus infection shit. So if I sound a little nasally or stuffy, uh, had a little sinus infection. But yeah, glad to
Oh,
be here.
shit.
Glad to talk about anything and everything sober summer. I mean, it's
Hell yeah.
definitely. I did a sober month last year, but other than that, I hadn't really been sober in much the last like 10 years. So it's been a well-needed break. And sober summer is going to be 3 or 4 months this summer. So looking forward to what that entails.
So, how long has it been that you've been in the sober summer as of right now?
I started, I think, on like June 2nd or 3rd. It's like one of the first days of June. Um, And the only thing I've really done since is mushroom microdoses, like zero point 0.1 grams of mushrooms every 3 days or so, but nothing crazy.
Oh,
Um,
super nice.
I've also only had caffeine like 3 times in the last 30 days too. So that's been
Dude.
interesting. It actually, I feel a lot better. I started drinking this, eh, a shout out Bowen, if you know him, the cowboy punk. But I
Balance.
guess he's an investor in this company called Magic Mind, and they do these like no caffeine kind of like focus. I don't want to call it an energy shot, but it's like this fucking proprietary blend of a whole bunch of shit that isn't caffeine because the guy who made it was having heart problems and his doctor told him he couldn't drink caffeine anymore or take caffeine. So he made this
Uh-huh.
magic mind blend, and I've been using that, and it does definitely give me a nice like bit of energy and focus, but it also doesn't give me the kind of like crashing effect that the caffeine gives. Like caffeine is when I drink caffeine, it feels a lot like a dab, where it's like a very front loaded experience where like within the first 15 minutes or so, your like heart rate picks up heavily and you're like sweating and all that shit. And then like
Yeah.
after a couple hours, you need another one because it wore off. So I would say this Magic Mind is more like longer time thing. Like you just drink one and you're kind of chilling for the day. You don't really need another one.
I fucking love that. I've
Yeah,
recently
not to
switched
show a
things up a bit
product I'm
too.
not invested in 5 minutes into the podcast. But yeah, that's
No, I mean, I'm gonna look into that for sure. And I definitely know Balin from Twitter and just from like being in the space for a bit. And yeah, I totally feel that because I first of all, I admire that you're doing that because like that in combination with everything else, it's really just like a shock to your body. I realized the other day that I've been smoking for more years of my life than I have been
sober.
like out of my entire, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I hit that point of like greater than 50% of my life has been like me smoking weed basically every single day. And I feel like I use it as a tool personally, but like also cutting it out, you notice a lot of differences. And like right now, I haven't smoked yet today. And lately, I've been kind of like not smoking until more like the evening. And I just notice a difference throughout the day. But like if I'm really getting into a deep creative vibe, I'll like dose a little bit, like maybe a few hits of a joint or something, or like a bong rip. But like I want to know how you feel like about the whole process. Like, what have you learned so far from doing sober summer? Like, because I guess you said that you've only done it like for like a month in the past, and is this like the second time then that you're doing this?
Yeah, it's I'm a lot more irritable and I would say the big thing I notice is just this like fog has been lifted in my head and I feel like memories of like multiple years are coming back to me, and when I was perma stoned, I like lost touch with a lot of those memories. Um, and I'm just not afraid to say what's on my mind right now at all. Like when I'm high, I'll just kind of let things go. And when I'm sober, like I have no one to answer to. I don't have an employer. Like I advise a couple of my friends' companies, but like I don't really have anything associated with me other than myself right now. And it just allows me to say whatever the fuck I want to say because I know that I have good intentions and I know that everything I've done in this space speaks for itself. And like, I don't
For
need
sure.
somebody like Martin Shkreli to call me a scammer. And like, I'm not going to think differently about myself because somebody who went to prison for scamming people is calling me a scammer. Whereas like when I'm high, you know, I might not even go down that route. So
Yeah,
I think I'm just like a lot more self confident when I'm sober, and my mind is just sharper. But I am a little more harsh and judgmental on people than when I'm high, and I'm probably less creative. Like I have not been creating much this month. Um, I made a piece that I'm not super happy with, but it's like of this group of killer moose running after me outside of my house while like the forest behind us is burning down because that was the first dream
sure.
that I had when I was on sober
Huh.
summer,
That's
and
what I was gonna say. It's
I
like
thought
sounds like a dream.
thought it was kind of memorable. So I thought like maybe I would take that idea and try to make it a DeeZe edition at some point. But the current piece I have for that is not. It's like a 6 out of 10. It's not something I'm excited to share or post, but it's like a decent starting point. Um, but yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't been as like I don't want to. I started writing a couple months. Well, started writing last sober summer. I wrote this really long. I don't even know, like almost like a 10,000 word thing about where I came from and how I got to where I am today. And it got a lot of good feedback. And then I wrote another article on like high engagement information or high signal information sources and like trying to separate signal from noise in a very noisy environment on Twitter and in crypto in general. But ever since I wrote those two articles, I think I wrote the last one like March. I haven't really been inspired to write anything else. So sober summer hasn't. Maybe I'll write a sober summer recap at the end of the summer or something. But I've noticed that I'm just like not as creative. I'm much more just want to grind things like grinding a bunch of NFL best ball lineups, grinding some
Nice.
RuneScape again, trading a little more frequently right now. Like we've had a lot of volatility, especially in meme coins over the last month, mostly to the downside, but over the last couple of days, there's been some bottoms and some nice price action. So I've been more like comfortable taking a $20,000 position and making 30% and just selling it. Whereas like when I'm
Nice.
high, I'll buy $20,000 worth of something and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hold this until it goes up to $200,000 or it goes to zero. And then like 95% of the time it goes to zero. Um, so right now I'm just like a lot more happy with like, oh shit, like I just made, 20-30% on 20 grand. That's nice. I'll take the $6,000 and go on to the next thing. So
For sure.
I think right
For
now
sure.
it's mostly in the memes that we're seeing this volatility. Like we're not really majors are, they are what they are, but you're seeing some memes go up like 60% a day. Like I'm looking right now and some of the stuff on Solana is up 50-60% a day. Even stuff like MOG is up 20%. I've done pretty decent trading MOG over the last month too. So yeah, I think I'm just more like dialed in, a little more focused, and I'm valuing money a lot more now that I'm sober than when I was high. I wrote a thread about a lot of the round trips I took while I was high from the start of the year up and through June, and it was pretty sobering to like, cumulatively I pissed away over $1 million because I was just pretty apathetic and like, yeah, maybe the prices keep going up. Like I don't really want to sell it for 100 grand. Maybe it'll go to like a million
Yeah.
and then it goes back down to like 10 grand and I sell it after 90% loss. So yeah, that's been really the big thing for me with sober summer is just back in the saddle and making way better decisions with a clearer mind.
Classic. Like the lessons that come from trading are just never ending. It's like you could trade for like entire life and up until the last day of it, like you're still learning new lessons.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
you're always
the market.
battling human psychology, and it's just at the end of the day, it's all about survival, right? So no matter how confident you are in something, unless you have 100% confidence, you should still probably have smaller position sizes and making sure that worst case scenario, your life is unchanged, even if a trade goes badly.
100%. Like I've had some pretty solid losses this year from trading, just like being over leveraged or just trying to make it all in one trade. And like honestly, at this point, like I actually was listening to the Shakai podcast that you had on We Do a Little. And he mentioned something so unique that I was like, wow, like it really made me stop and think about it. He was like, I he was like, I traded and I was trying trading out. Like every so often I do it, but I realized like that most of the money that I make in this space is from creating, and most of the money that I lose is from trading. So he's like, I just don't trade anymore. And I was like, huh. Because I was like, damn, like that kind of sounds like me. And honestly, I just haven't been trading really at all. I've been collecting like a little bit here and there, just through like Zora and stuff like that, but nothing like with intention to flip. And it's been interesting, like being completely away from the trading side when I've been so deep into it over the last 2 to 3 years. So yeah, I feel you. Like I definitely think that being sober definitely has like shed a new light on things for you. It seems like everything is kind of different in a sense, and I can relate to it. Like just every day, like I would wake up and just start smoking and then just get into whatever. And on the days I don't do that, I definitely do notice that I'm more like snappy and clear and sharp. My appetite though totally disappears pretty much. I'm curious like how you're doing with that. Like are you hungry, or like is it just like there you just have no like satiation or whatever, um like looking towards food and you're just kind of like vibing?
Yeah, the appetite took like, I don't know, maybe 10 days to come back. So the first week,
Oh,
forcing myself to eat breakfast was a thing. I'm somebody who every day eats like 3 eggs, half an avocado, and this like protein bagel for breakfast. And
nice.
I just found that if I eat that for breakfast, I'm not like door dashing $30 worth of junk every day, and I can just like make that breakfast for a couple bucks, and it's super consistent and good for me. Um, but the first 10 days or so, I was like halfway through the first bagel and just like, fuck, I don't want to eat this. Like forcing myself to eat it. And then I don't know, after 10 days or 2 weeks or so, it kind of goes away and you get back to normal. Um, and I've
Yeah,
been pretty normal since.
yeah. So like with the current market and everything, so you said you've been trading a lot more. um like what are you really focused on right now in this current market? Like what has your interest, and like where do you feel like the best plus EV opportunities have been over the last month or two?
Yeah, I'm really just following the liquidity and volatility. So like that's really been meme coins. The dangerous thing about meme coins is there's so many and there's like infinitely more made every day. So you really have to pick your spots. Um,
Mhm.
but I'm also paying attention. We just had the Blur season
Yeah.
and the Blast airdrop happened. So I think there could be some opportunities in NFTs now that you don't have a lot of inorganic volume and buying and selling pressure there. Um, I have
Mhm.
it's hard for me. Like, so traditionally, most of my big wins in NFTs come from buying things that are under $500 and holding them until they go up to prices over $10,000. So like I'm not
Interesting.
super excited right now to go buy, Bored Apes at 9 ETH or Pudgies at 9 ETH
Yeah.
or My Ladies at 5. Um I am more interested in like stuff under like half an ETH or 0.25 ETH. And one of the bigger bets in terms of quantity, not price, was the Bodagos last year. I bought like 50 some of them for under 2 SOL a piece when SOL was under like $60. And I'm
Ooh.
still holding 45 of those because I do think that, risk adjusted, they're one of the most visible profile pictures on the timeline every day. And they're like one of the cheapest possible. Like I see 10x more
Yeah.
Bodagos than I see things like Doodles, but Doodles are 10x the price. Um, Similar
Uh-huh.
with like Azuki. I see more Bodagos on my timeline than I see Azuki these days. Maybe it's just I follow more Bodagos, or maybe that's just what the algorithm gives me. And I'm super biased, but I'm definitely looking at like those cheap things. Like I'm not really trying to buy assets that are already $10,000+ trying to make money.
Uh-huh.
I was planning on, if punks got to around 50,000, picking up a floor punk to try and trade it, but I don't know. I don't think they're going to get there. It seems like we got that $75,000 price tested. And there's a pretty nice amount of buying that came in, and now they're closer to 90 to 100 again. So risk adjusted, it's I'd like to own a punk, another punk, just because I like punks, but it's not like the best risk adjusted opportunity in the market right now.
Would you ever sell the hoodie punk, the legendary DeeZe hoodie punk?
Yeah, I would sell it, but not. It would have to be multiple millions of dollars. Like it's not like something.
Yeah.
I, if I sold it today, I think I could get. I don't know. Maybe this is stupid. I think I could get at least like 500, $600,000 for it. We just saw that hoodie
Oh
sell
yeah.
for. It was the one attribute that Pablo
Right.
Picasso sold.
Was
And I know mine isn't a one attribute, but I think the combination of traits make it worth more than the one attribute that was sold. But that could be a bias. But I'm not interested in selling this thing. I'd probably, if you offered me like, I don't know, you'd have to offer me like $5 million today for me to sell it. And if you sold it, if I sold it, I would also, the deal has always been, if I ever sell that punk, you're going to get the ape, the toad, the wizard, every honorary I have that you want of that punk is going to be yours. Because I don't see the point in
that's tight.
holding a whole bunch of honoraries for the PFP I don't have anymore. Um, so that's why the price is so high for me. Like I've, for better or worse, made my whole brand this damn thing, and not really interested in like selling it. I have to like basically at least double or more my net worth to sell it, and if I'm not getting that amount, I don't really care enough to sell it because it's not going to change my life or do anything for me.
Right. It just wouldn't feel right unless you felt like super excited about like what you would get from it. Because otherwise, like, yeah, it is your brand and like people know it as the DeeZe punk. It's like the DeeZe combo of traits,
Yeah, I
basically.
mean, I don't know anybody who has more honoraries than I do.
No, dude, I know it's so wild. Like every project that comes out is like, yo, like first honorary D's. And because it's, I think though too, because it's like the combination of traits is just so iconic. So like it just makes sense. Like I know I've made you a couple honoraries, I think, over the years. Um, maybe not actually. I don't know. I
I
feel like I was working on one and maybe never finished it.
I also think, my track record kind of speaks for itself. I've only ever sold one honorary, and that was an honorary Nakamigo because the Nakamigo holders were just so fucking annoying on Twitter. They're like in my replies trying to get me to buy Nakamigos. And instead of buying Nakamigos, I just sold the honorary they gave me, and then that pissed them off even more. But that's been the only honorary I've ever sold. I didn't sell my ape when it was worth 100 plus. I didn't sell the toad when it was worth 100 plus. I didn't sell the wizard when it was worth over 50. I've never sold any of those honoraries because at the time, it was like, I don't need to see if I'm just gonna hold it.
Wow. The Toad honorary, the D's Toad honorary was over 100.
Dude, if you look at some of the honorary sales on toads, you're gonna be disgusted. Like, uh, Lee, Lotta Kid.
Um, no,
Okay.
actually.
There's a couple people, him and Sobi, I think,
Yeah,
are
I know
two
Sobe, of
people who
course.
like they sold their honorary toad for under 30 ETH or something. And like a week later, they got sold for like 80 to 100 a pop. like, like just
Somebody
that type of
flipped
shit was
their
happening.
honorary.
That type of shit was happening on the the honorary front. So
My God. I remember when Toads minted and I bought like a shit ton and I was like, yo, these are just like I was up like 5x, so I immediately sold them. And then they just went way beyond. I would have been up like, I don't even know, 100x or whatever. Or so I don't know. I was like point oh whatever mint price. And then it rose to like what, like 10, like 15.
16, almost 20 ETH, yeah.
Oh my gosh. What a
And
time.
yeah, that was a fun summer. But basically with the honorary stuff, it's like people see my track record of, hey, like he doesn't sell these. If we give him one, you know, half the time you give me an honorary, I end up buying a couple of your projects. I'm an idiot, and then I lose my money. But you know, sometimes it works out. So
That's funny. Do you think we're gonna see like another NFT run like that, like we did in 2021, 2022, even
I don't know if
early
it'll
2023?
be as extreme. But I do think there will be collections that just outperform significantly, like outperform holding ETH. I don't know if it'll ever look like it did in 2021 because I don't have the imagination to get there. I think that's why I like the cheap stuff because I don't know if it'll ever outperform, but if it does, it has such high upside. Um, like even if punks were to go back to all-time high from where they're at, that's like a 5x or something. Like that's cool, but like 5x is, you know, in this space not that crazy. It's more of like, you know,
Yeah.
you're storing value and owning a cultural object that you find significance in, not because you're trying to like crush the best risk return trade. Um, and yeah,
Right.
for the cheap stuff, it's like you don't know when you buy something for under $500, but like it could go to 10,000 plus, and then you're at a 20x plus. Like puppets are I think the best example of this.
Yes.
I bought like 22 puppets under $500 a piece because I could not stop laughing, and then they went to like $30,000 a piece within 3 months, and I sold a couple. But like I didn't know when I was buying 20 of them at under $500 a piece, they were going to go up so much. It was just like, these are fucking hilarious. If they go to zero, I'm still going to laugh when I look at them. And if they go up, like, that's great too. And
Dude,
those are
yeah.
kind of the best things if you can find them to buy, I think.
Like the whole like vibe with puppets of like just like send it to zero just from the start is just was like so bullish, you know, like ironically, I guess. Just because everybody's like, fuck it, like I don't even care about the price. I think these are hilarious. And it just makes sense that it goes up because supply and demand.
Yeah, there's more
Um,
buyers than sellers. But
yeah,
it is maybe somewhat destructive when you're telling outsiders, like, hey, we're sending this to zero. But it really, at the end, I think self-selects for the right holders. Um, if
yeah,
you're scared by a collection because they're saying they're going to zero, then you probably shouldn't buy it anyway. But some people, like, that made them want to buy it more because they fucked with that vibe.
yeah,
So it's kind of this like, you know, double-edged sword. I can see both sides of it, but I think in the end it's a net benefit because you're self-selecting for holders who are actually comfortable holding the damn thing to zero, which means they're probably not going to sell it when it goes down 80% because they are
yeah.
content
When
with zero.
it's like the key is like when that happens because it's like inevitable that it does. And then it's like, well, it will either grow or it'll kind of just chill. And like, I think that the base of holders with puppets, like as a core project on Bitcoin, it's pretty much like very solid. Like everybody thought node monkeys were just like the punks of Bitcoin. And like basically, you know, they ran. And then it's like people are buying the top of that thinking they're buying the bottom. And with puppets, I don't feel like that ever kind of happened. It was just like people were buying puppets because they're like, yo, this is fucking amazing and hilarious. And like the vibes were just on point and they went up as a result. And then they flipped nodes, right, for just like a little bit. And then they kind of flipped them again. And then now they're kind of like even, aren't they? I mean, maybe
They're
nodes are a
pretty
little
close.
higher.
Yeah, right now nodes are 0.16 and puppets are 0.14, basically.
Yeah,
So
basically the same, honestly.
And I have 4 nodes still too. I was pretty early to those. They're still all in profit, even at current prices.
Nice.
So
Nice.
I like the thing that I liked about Node Monkeys, I saw them before I saw Puppet, so that was one of the things. But they had a really clean, or they have a clean site. The Monkey Decks, you can go see all the nodes. You can export high res versions of them, change the background colors, and do a bunch of filtering and stuff. And it's one of the cleanest sites reviewing any NFT collection on any chain. So when I saw them pop up on, I think it was like right around Christmas time, I started learning about them. I was like, oh,
Yep.
there's something here that I haven't seen with other ordinal collections. So I think at one point I might have had 9 or 12. It might have had 12. But when the prices were going up, I was selling a bunch of them and just chilling. I didn't sell like any over half a Bitcoin somehow. Like I sold way early, not thinking they would go to like close to 1 Bitcoin. So that was kind of a mistake. But overall, not mad at it at all.
No, those are good trades. And like I honestly I feel like you've been early to a lot of different things based off just vibes, like not based off some like signal or some shit, like some like chat or something, like just based off like, all right, like these feel like a vibe. And honestly, like watching those things kind of evolve has been dope. And I think that we're gonna have more projects like that as well. And I don't know what chain will really dominate when NFTs do start going like berserk again, which I do think will happen. But I'm not sure. Like, what do you think about like Base versus Solana? Like, I know you mentioned Bodagos, and obviously Nifty. Like, they have tons of exposure. They're like basically like always active, always on it. And Pio and Nick, I love those guys. Easy, all good dudes. I've met them at some conferences and stuff too, and they're good dudes, good people, and I like what they do. I think that honestly, your thesis with Bodagos is pretty on point. I'm curious, like, what you think about like Base versus Solana versus Bitcoin. Like, do you think that Solana is going to see like another NFT craze in a sense, kind of like it did? Or do you feel like it's mostly like meme coins on Solana and then mostly like, random additions on Base and some memes and like Bitcoin's basically like NFTs? I haven't gotten into runes myself, but I'm curious like how you view the chains and like what you think the future might hold in regards to NFTs with those chains.
Yeah, I think from my own experience, I've had probably the worst luck on base. I don't seem to have a good read on the base culture or what the base community is going to buy or sell. Anything that I've ever made money off of base, I basically got for free, which is like the Farcaster OG token, the degen shit that we got for free for just tweeting or casting. Like I have an on-chain Gaia, but I didn't sell it, but I got it for basically free. I don't really,
Nice.
to me, base feels vibrationally like too corporate and forced. And like when you call everything based, nothing is based because it's just a fucking word that everybody uses to describe fucking chain. So I'm not taking any big bets on base. Maybe that's misplaced, but I like to take bets in the ecosystems where I feel like I have a better read. Solana, I could definitely see another NFT cycle because, I mean, it's fast, it's cheap, and it onboards a bunch of people, which, I mean, you could say the same thing about base. There's things on Solana that I have conviction in that are cheap right now. And there's nothing on base that I have strong conviction in that there's just nothing on base I have strong conviction in. So even if it's cheap right now, I don't know if it's a good bet. But like you said with Bodagos, it's like I see Nick, Pio, Easy, Clemente, and Jack and the rest of their team at events every time I go. I see them on Twitter every day. They're, love them or hate them, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't see that on base right now. Like I don't know any base collection where I see them every day and love them or hate them. I know they're not going anywhere. So I'm not taking any big bets there. Especially with gas being as cheap as it is right now, like you can just find good bets on ETH. that you don't need to spend a ton of money to buy. So I don't really see like the L2 NFT ecosystems doing well compared to the L1 bets you can make right now because it's so cheap to buy them. Or on Solana, like there's a whole nother culture on Solana that doesn't touch the Ethereum ecosystem. And the Ethereum ecosystem is like a bunch of fragmented liquidity, a bunch of, you got people on, I mean, Blast looks fucking cooked right now. Like Blast, now that there's no incentives, it looks kind of cooked, but I'm sure they're going to get more incentives and people are going to rotate back. But all the other liquidity on ETH, whether it's on Base or Arbitrum or Optimism or I don't know, people are still on Polygon. Like I think the fragmented liquidity just hurts the ceiling for a lot of those projects. Whereas like on Solana, it's just all the Solana liquidity is on Solana. So I'm looking at prices right now. I mean, I didn't realize Frogana's got to a half sol floor, but they're up like 200% today.
Damn, and they're at half a sol up.
Well, they're at
200%?
they're at 1.5 now. So they went from half to 1.5. Which is like a 3x.
Nice. Okay.
But their state
cool.
like bodegas are actually up. I didn't realize it. They're up to 3 sol and they were at 2 sol like 2 or 3 days ago. So like there are people on Solana who are buying
They're
shit.
still trading.
And yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna buy cheap stuff, I'm gonna buy it probably on Solana or ETH1. I'm not going to the L2s. And that's just because I realized I just historically have had horrible luck on the L2s. Like most of the time I bridge money into one of the L2s, I lose like 50% and then get pissed off and then bridge it back. Like I don't really do well. So I don't want to like keep putting big chunks of liquidity into things where I have not proven to myself I have an edge.
Yeah, I feel that too. I think that Base, like when you said it's kind of feels like very corporate, it feels forced. It feels like, everything is based. Like the summer is based. It's on-chain summer. Like they literally ripped on-chain just like straight up from like the definition that everyone was using. They just started marketing heavily and they took the hyphen out and they're like on-chain is based. Like everything that's on chain is just like defined as like if you're doing a transaction on ETH L2 base, like you're on chain. And I think that that's kind of like that was kind of detrimental in a sense to the OG ecosystem of people actually making art on chain with a hyphen on hyphen chain. And like I think there is like a bit of a cult following for people on Warpcast, and that's probably what Base has going for it, as well as Coinbase's like massive opportunity for marketing the hell out of it. But like for me personally, I've been collecting a bunch of art on Base, and it's because that's where I've been finding all the art that people are minting lately is on Base. Like I don't really at all collect on exchange.art or collect on Solana. I was for a little, but now it's like I don't really ever see anyone marketing Solana art that has any sales, or I don't really see anybody even marketing NFT collections lately besides just blue chip ones that already everyone knows about. So I really do agree with you on that take with Base. Like it does feel very corporate and forced, and I think Warpcast as a whole, like I could totally be wrong, but it does feel very bearish. The price being incredibly astronomically down on DGen doesn't help probably for that sentiment. This could be the bottom as I'm saying this, but like haven't logged into Warpcast and like I don't even know. I do throw a few posts on there here and there, but like I'm back on X being very active. I think the X feed is so like informative. There's so much good stuff in that feed. I find myself just like sucked into it. So like I do agree though, like I think Solana could be next up. And of course, like people probably aren't expecting that as much. Maybe they are, but at least for myself, I wasn't really. I think that Base had an opportunity to be like, okay, like this is the next big thing. This is what everyone's gonna be running transactions on like crazy. And there's a more transactions on base, I think, than ETH mainnet. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm pretty sure I read something like that. I don't know. Gotta fact check that, I guess. But
I
um,
do think the base
yeah.
local bottom is near, just because Jesse Pollock has been on his honeymoon for like all of fucking June, and he's the only person at like working on base who I see consistently. So when he is not around cheerleading it every day, I do think it
Mm,
loses significant amount of mind share. Like, as stupid as that sounds, like you don't want something to be all on one person's back. But I think this summer has shown so far that, you know, he is so important to the base ecosystem and mindshare that when he's not on the timeline, you know, the presence of base feels significantly less. And that's just my own personal opinion. It probably completely anecdotal based off of my For You page and algorithms and that stuff, but that's how it feels. And he'll be back pretty soon. So if you do think base is going to have a resurgence, it's probably in July and August, and like now is probably a good time to bet on some of those things. That being said, like an on-chain Gaia or whatever is still 0.2 ETH. I could go buy the dog for less than half of that. Um, Still
uh-huh.
seems like a better bet to me, but I'm not going to sell my Gaia that I have at 0.2 ETH either. I'm just going to hold it.
Yeah. I mean, man, like what's wild too is like with base and like Warpcast kind of being hand in hand in a sense. Like there's only, I saw the statistics, like there's only about like 3,000 ish people that have a power badge on Warpcast,
Do
which
I
is,
have one? I haven't even used it. Fuck. Let me look.
let's see. I'm gonna pull up here too. I've still
I
got
thought I
mine. It
did,
looks
but
like.
I haven't used it in so long that I would be surprised if
Let me.
I still had it.
Yeah, you do.
Power user, yeah. So like I haven't put out a tweet in a month, 22 days, and I'm a power user still.
Interesting. They have just introduced something called streaks as well,
We
where
do a
like,
little check. I'll get out of cast now, just
yeah,
to refresh my power user.
just, we do a little,
We do
we
a
do a
little
little
checking
casting.
out the blast ecosystem. I'll put out the this there's this medieval wolf trap picture that I tweeted today and said it's a picture of the blast
Saw that,
ecosystem. Like you have this
dude.
sheep in the middle and you have a trail
Yeah.
of blood, and then you have these wolves who think they're smart following the blood, and then they get trapped in the labyrinth and can't get out, and then they're just beaten to death by the medieval people.
Dude, blast. That's a whole other thing too. It's like I think that Blur and Blast, like it's perfectly engineered towards number go up technology, like attracting people in, like the farming, the gambling nature of it, the like basically everything A to Z is like how do we attract the liquidity that comes from degens looking to put $1 in and get $2 out, right? And like all of that is, I feel, I mean, this is just my personal opinion, I suppose, but it feels like the sentiment on that energy is just like tired. Like people, I feel, are just tired of like farming and tired of like just trying to degen gamble to like make their like 1.5x or whatever, or like I think the market's taken a lot of losses as a whole, and I'm curious, like your take on like how you feel about the Blast ecosystem. Like, do you feel like it's just like people are tired of it and ready for something new? Like, are we ready to get back into like just trading NFTs with low liquidity and just being degens in that regard instead of like just like farming into the void? Like, what's your take on all of it?
Yeah, I think the farmers are tired across the whole farming spectrum. Like whales got burnt on Blast unless they the best way to play Blast was to bridge a bunch of ETH and just put it into like wasabi or juice as supply, get the yield, and basically do nothing else. If you were any of the whales who took significant capital and put it into the top 10 or 15 um, farms by gold allocation, you just got absolutely fucking hammered. Like if you bought District 1 shares, you lost a ton of money. If you bought yield to farm crypto valleys, you lost a ton of money. If you put your money in the Munchables contract, you got rugged for over a month.
Oh,
If you like, it just there was this perception, I think, early on that the Blast team did some type of due diligence on the teams they were allocating hundreds of millions of dollars worth of gold to, but it actually turned out that they didn't do much due diligence at all. And when you offload your due diligence to somebody else, that's normally a horrible sign. And we learned, another valuable lesson there. Um, it
yeah.
just brings me back to reading Atlas Shrugged and thinking of the San Sebastian mines and how one of the main characters burnt millions of dollars knowing that his competitors were going to burn multiple more millions of dollars and he would be able to survive it and wipe out his competitors. Like that's how I feel like the Blast ecosystem felt like to me. So the people who just bridged like 1,000+ ETH took their yield, they made like 40% APY, I think. Like Bob Lucas is a good example. Most people know him. Very wealthy guy
Uh-huh.
who has a bunch of money, and he didn't do any of the degen shit, didn't use the apps. He just bridged ETH and parked it and was super happy with it. Those are the type of people who did well in Blast. But the people who used the platform and put a bunch of capital into a bunch of the different gold farms mostly got hosed. There were a few things like, Pac Moon was cool because you tweeted about Pac Moon and got tens of thousands of dollars worth of free Pac Moon, very much like degen on base. That was a bright spot. But the bright spots were few and far between, right? So I think people are tired, they're burnt, they don't want to risk more capital without explicit reward. And hopefully that means that more attention flows back into things that people are buying because they intrinsically want it and they intrinsically want to use it. And it's not because they think there is going to be an extrinsic reward that isn't quantifiable at a later date.
That's a huge key right there. Like people buying something because they intrinsically want it. Like getting back to that, I think, is going to heal our ecosystem here, like in a great way. And like that's how when I got into NFTs that it was like people were buying these NFTs, yes, to flip them for sure, but like also because they thought they were cool, like from an intrinsic standpoint, they're like, yo, these are sick. Like I remember Vogu, like do you remember that collection back from the day, those
Yeah, that's
robots?
familiar.
Yeah, like that's just an example of like one that like I hear nothing about nowadays, but minted out in like a millisecond. And there's a ton of those examples from like 2021, 2022-ish. But like, people thought it was cool, so then they bought it and then they trade it and then they move on. But like at least like people were like buying stuff not just because of this like opaque way of maybe making money from it. And then like, what are you actually doing? You're just like putting money on a protocol to like just have the money be there, and then maybe you get some more money at the end. Like you're doing it because you want the end result of more money, but like in reality, who's really winning from it? Like, I guess the people that just did nothing, which was the minority, I suppose. Besides just like they just put their money on there, like you said, and just vibed. But I think that with so many different things happening in the space, like you look at ETH and you look at Bitcoin being up from the year start, and people are like, yeah, I lost like 60% of my portfolio. And it's like, how? Right. But it's because there's so many of these opportunities every day that like you want to like you're enticed by them. And if we think instead like, okay, like what do I intrinsically value about this thing that I'm investing in? Like am I buying degen on base because I intrinsically value like that mission, or am I doing it because I'm like trying to get this flip? And like I think that the most of people are just getting wrecked, and like it's just going to come full circle. And I think people are going to kind of come back to just trading digital pictures for like shit with pictures. And whether that's going to be on Solana is going to be interesting to see. But
I mean, I think it'll happen in multiple places. Like you'll see good things happen on Solana, you'll see good things happen on ETH, you'll see probably good things happen on ordinals. Like I think it'll be everywhere. but I'm just probably overly optimistic also in praying for my bags, which is, I think that's important when anyone listens to me talk or anybody else on Twitter talk. It's the second order effect of having a public account and talking about things you're interested in is that the things you're interested in, you're probably going to buy yourself and you're going to have positions in them. And people should look at what you say through that lens of like, oh, well, of course they're going to say positive things because they have a bag. That being said, I do try to FUD the living shit out of my bags a lot. I don't think there's many people who FUD their bags more than I do. Um, and I think that's important to always just like keep yourself honest and look at, both the pros and the cons of what you're holding, even if you're holding a large amount of something.
You're stress testing them, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, if a bag can't uh, be like, if I can FUD my own bag to zero, it's a bad bag. Like
Right.
essentially is the thought behind it. But
Yeah.
it has to be like, warranted FUD too. It can't just be like talking out my ass,
Yeah.
which I do sometimes.
Like, I think that you have an overall very sound perspective and like a sound like voice that you provide to the space. Like, I love that you've been just calling people out on their shit. I don't think that you've been unreasonable, like, at all. Like, I think that the space, like I look at it as like, are we pushing the space forward? And like everyone kind of looks, not everyone, I guess, but like the majority of people look to everyone else to like push the space forward. And in reality, it's all of us that are pushing the space forward or not. So it's like when we're being real and when we're calling people out on their shit because it's like, yo, like this is the truth of the matter from your perspective. I think that it's healthy. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of opportunities in space that people are just kind of like hoping that other people do stuff for the space to grow. But each and every one of us have this like dope opportunity right now where this market's kind of like, NFTs went insane and digital assets like went insane. And then like now, things like fizzled a lot, things crashed, things kind of grew back up. But there's a lot of fragmented attention now versus like back in the day, it was like just ETH. Like there wasn't real popularity for Bitcoin NFTs, if anything at all. There wasn't like real popularity for anything outside of Ethereum. And I feel like it allowed for everyone to kind of focus in on one thing. So, now it's like you mentioned, you think pretty much all of them will have success in their own way, like Solana, Ordinals, ETH, Base potentially. But like all of that fragmentation, I think kind of makes it difficult to be like incredibly bullish on like one thing. Um, so it'll be interesting, I think, to see it play out. But
I mean, I
yeah,
think you can be incredibly bullish on niches, but you have to know it well. Like, if I only had to pick one place to gamble my money, I would probably edge towards the Solana ecosystem. Like, I just feel like there's going to be better gains there than in the Ethereum ecosystem. But I'm going to play both because I can. But I'm going to be looking for more upside plays in Solana. And I could be completely wrong, but since I'm also going to be paying attention to ETH, it's like if I'm wrong, I'm still probably going to catch something on ETH that does well too. I think it's important not to be like complete maxi and to give yourself multiple outs and not just like tie yourself to one ecosystem's missile and for better or worse, if it does well, you'll do well. And if it does badly, you'll do badly. I think that's a pretty stupid way to go about it. I think you have to be a little more open-minded. And when you are open-minded, you'll, be able to transition to other ecosystems without much friction. At least that's been my experience. Like I always say, like I'm a liquidity maxi. I'm not a Ethereum maxi or Solana maxi. I'm just gonna follow the liquidity and gamble on cool shit where there's liquidity.
and now the liquidity, where do you think it's mostly at?
I mean, I think it'll be on Solana and ETH. I don't.
Uh huh.
I'm holding the puppets But I'm not like betting big on runes. Like I don't think runes are gonna get a bunch of liquidity, for example. So I'm not betting big on them.
Uh-huh.
I think the user experience is pretty shit. And I think like maybe 5 runes get listed on a centralized exchange and then that's where people will trade them. But like if you ever buy a fucking rune, it's like you just ask yourself what you're doing is you're waiting for a Bitcoin block to pass and you're staring at the mempool and you're seeing your transaction get sniped and then you're sniping the snipe and then you get sniped of your snipe and then you're sniping the sniper's snipe of your snipe and then like 25 minutes later you've had like 22 snipes on one buy and the gas fee is the price of the buy and you're just like, yeah, this is awesome. I love this.
Yeah, dude, I have not gotten into it at all. Like,
Save yourself the time, dude. You're chilling. Like you're not missing out on much. Like I would say at least get into the ordinals.
uh-huh.
But you could probably just completely fade runes. And hopefully, somebody takes a sound clip of this and puts it on Twitter and then tells me I'm wrong, and then runes go up to infinity. And then in which case the few runes I have also go up to infinity and it's fine. But yeah, I really just think like runes are pretty much the worst bet of all the major niches right now. So I would fade those the hardest.
Like, it'll be sick to see just new projects coming out like more consistently as things do trend upwards. Because as of right now, like, there's really no new projects on my feed besides maybe like off the top of my head. There was like one that launched recently that I thought was cool called Entangled. I don't know if you saw that. I didn't get to mint it, but it
I
was
did.
like the one that
What's the
you
TLDR on it?
basically, like, you might have saw the viral post where the dude had two windows and they like merged together and have like their own like connection,
Oh
but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
in
yeah. That was on. Yeah, that I did see that. I
yes,
do
yeah,
kind of regret. I forgot the name of it.
entangled.
All his life was showing me it. They had some on FX Hash. You can mint it on Ether Tezos.
Right, right.
Yeah, that
Like
was.
like projects like that, like it doesn't have to be like that insane, but even just like projects that are like, hey, like here's the thing that we're trying to do. We're launching this month or whatever. We're launching next month or like I just don't feel like there's really anyone there's not that many of those anymore versus like when NFTs were at their height, obviously everyone was trying to capitalize and there was new projects like every day. You could say that for like when ETH was really popping, like back in the day, or like even Solana, like when Magic Eden was like doing launch pads and like new shit was coming out, like Rubber came out by Crypto Pop Punk, and that like mooned, and people really loved that, and like a ton of launchpad projects. And until I think that we start to see people like doing projects more, there's not enough opportunity. So there isn't really anything for degens to gamble on besides just the vaporous meme coins that like is truly the most hardcore version of PvP. So, it's just very interesting to observe. Like, are people going to get tired, do you think, of PvP, or is it just like a never ending game?
I think it's a never-ending game. I don't think people are ever going to get tired of it. I mean, I'm sure you've played video games. Do you ever get tired of going into a game and killing another player and taking their money? Like,
Yeah, no, I guess not.
does that feeling ever get old?
Yeah,
Um,
no.
so no, I don't think those are going anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that's maybe a grim way to say it, but like, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I
just
see it.
that's an example. You have to understand that I'm a person who, from the age of like 8 until the age of 28, was spending 8+ hours a day playing video games that were strictly competitive, where it was my one and only goal to outplay another player. Um, so like that's just the environment
Hmm.
that I grew up thinking in, and yeah, I mean, that might sound a little harsh for the people who are listening to this who are more like the wag me type, but it's kind of the truth. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
trying to find new mints that do exceptionally well. You have to realize that 99% of new mints are going to go to zero, and most of them are only going to have one big liquidity event or exit pump. So when you mint some bullshit like the rubbers, and they go up to over 10 Sol and you don't sell them, and then you don't, absolutely
Yeah.
love the art and want the I don't even know like what promises they told us with rubbers, like, oh, there's gonna be utility. I'm holding one, but the point is they're worth fucking 1.5 Sol right now. They were worth 20 Sol. They'll probably never be worth more than 10 Sol again. And you just need to know that when you get a liquidity event on some brand new shit, you need to sell like 80% of it, if not all of it, to actually realize the gain, because you're probably not going to have the next Bored Ape and the next Fidenza.
Dude, that's really good wisdom. Honestly, like that chart, it's just that straight up spike and then that like down and then a little bit higher, not as high as the top, and then like down more and then a little bit up and then down. And then it's just like that giant fucking spike. And then that's when everyone's like, okay, like this is going to go up. And they think they're buying the bottom of what is actually the top. It's so,
I mean,
it's
pull up the
just
Fragana chart. It's the same thing, right? Like you had this thing,
literally,
it went to 20 Sol. People said it's the next Bored Ape. I've never seen anything like this since Bored Ape. And then you fast forward half a year, it's worth half a Sol. People are down 95%. And now
it's
we're euphoric over a day where the price goes up 3x. And if you don't have the chart on a log scale, you can barely tell it's off the bottom. Like that's what this shit is. And sometimes you're going to have things that come off that bottom very violently. Like look at something like Pepe from last year. That's a counterexample. Pepe came out of nowhere in April, pumped to high heavens, got listed on Binance, and then spent the better part of the next year going down only and forming a bottom. But then a new narrative emerged that sent it to new all-time highs. And that is always possible with any of these bags, but you need to have a lot of conviction and you need to get a little lucky too. But it is always possible. So it's like you can find the things that are depressed that still have a rabid community that you believe in and bet on them. But it takes a lot of conviction to hold those bags through a bunch of sideways, especially when you see other opportunities around you that short term seem more profitable. But that's, you're never going to make a bunch of money if you're following the herd, right? Like you have to do something that no one else is doing to make a bunch of money. Like there's no world where just everybody does the same thing and makes a bunch of money, because that doesn't exist. It's like you need to make a stand somewhere. You need to find some place where you think attention and liquidity will flow to in the future, where it doesn't have attention and liquidity right now. And you need to have enough conviction to actually hold that position to see the upside. So, it's not for everybody. Like most people aren't cut out to do it. Most people just go to Twitter, scroll the timeline, buy the thing being talked about that's flavor of the day, don't sell it when it goes up 50 to 100%. And then the top signal, they were the exit liquidity, they were the greatest fool.
Yep.
But
that's so true.
And they just run it back on the next thing that someone's talking about because they have no self-awareness and they don't realize that they're their own worst enemy.
Dude, it's so true. It's wild when you like zoom out from it and you kind of think about that chart and how it just has that massive spike up, and then it's just like, unless there's a new narrative that forms, then it's just all hopium, really. Like a new narrative is really what it takes in order to drive it again to new all-time highs. So it's just an interesting thing. And like, I think when we're in it every day, it's kind of like, I forget that. But like hearing you say that and like thinking about it right now, it just feels like it's really clear and it makes a lot of sense. I want to ask you something else here before we like wrap up. Tonight is the presidential debate. So like, I know you're holding Bowden and Trump, or at least you
I'm
were.
not holding either of them. I don't own
Nice.
any political meme coins at the time of this recording.
So do you think that, I guess, are you either just over it, or you're just like, do you think that there's another narrative that's going to emerge from political meme coins?
I sold every political meme coin I had right when the DJT thing came out, because it felt like if that had small percent of being real, then every other political meme coin was kind of, less
Right,
appetizing.
right, right, right.
But now that, Martin Shkreli is Martin Shkreli, and maybe it isn't real, or, maybe he's pressuring a teenager to do things that teenagers want to do. I just really didn't want anything to do with it. I definitely
Right.
think, could be a profitable trading opportunity, but I also think there's this common knowledge of like everybody knows the election is tonight, and all the buyers who were buying for the, I mean, not the election, sorry, the debate, all the buyers who were buying for the debate, like, didn't they already buy over the last week? Isn't that why prices on things like Trump are up 50% over the last week? I don't know. Um, I personally just don't think that. I guess Trump is up 20% today. I'm looking at it. That might be one of the better buys. Trump on ETH, but I'm not making a bet on it tonight. I'm just going to sit back and watch it and think about how far America has fallen. Did I get DC'd? No, I'm here.
Oh, sorry, man. I was
No,
on
you're
mute.
good.
My
You're
bad.
good. I was making sure
Um,
that I
I
didn't.
was laughing. I was saying basically, it's been great talking with you, and all these insights are massive. I think that this is an amazing first episode for In at Five the Art. Last thing I want to ask you before we roll out is, as of right now, do you feel like the space is in it for the art anymore? And what do you think about like people here that came in for the art? Do you think that those people are still around and they're still in it for the art?
I would say it depends on where you look. If you look at certain niches, then yeah, they're certainly here for the art and they're still very focused on the art. I would say that uh, people who came in because they saw they could make a bunch of money off Twin Flames and Where My Vans Go and some other collections that went from like nothing to 50 to 100 ETH over the course of a couple months. Like they might not be
Yeah.
buying art nearly as much as they used to. And I'm probably more in the second camp where like I spent over $1 million worth of profit on art, happy with what I have, but I'm at a point now where like my parents' houses aren't paid off. My house isn't paid off. I would much rather focus my excess capital on those than buying more art. I have 50 art pieces in my house. I have thousands of art pieces in my wallet. Uh, I'm pretty comfortable with the bets I've made. And art is it's a slow burn. Like when you're buying art, you're looking at a time horizon of like an artist's career. You're not looking at a time horizon of like on chain summer. Um, and I think that's important. And I think a lot of people, including myself, got a little too caught up in muddling time horizons. And we got a little too over allocated into the art. So, for me, a lot of my, I mean, you look at my like on chain wallets and stuff, like I don't sell any of my art really. Like I've rarely sold anything. I'm still holding all of it, but I'm not buying a lot more right now because I don't think that with the priorities I have in life right now, buying a bunch of art is going to help me uh, realize those priorities. So I think there's certainly good people doing great work out there. I think, you know, yesterday was a cool day. We saw All Ships announce they have a full place now in Williamsburg. When I think of people who are here
Nice.
for the all, I think of All Ships and Dave. Think of Redbeard. I think of the big collectors like Bat Soup and Barat and what Vince is doing with AOTM. Like shout out Vince and Aniko. I think all their curation is
Oh
excellent.
yeah.
Um, there's a lot of people here at Eli and the team over at Proof. They care very much about what they're doing. Like there's a lot of people who are here for the art. Um, and I love talking to artists on the pod too. Like I feel like that's how I do it is like I bring all my artist friends onto the pod when we're in the same town. And I like to show people what I see in them through the pod rather than through like monetary backing right now. Um, so there's certainly, depending on where you look, a lot of love for the art, but it's not as great, I think, of a percent of the total mind share as it was in like the 2021 late 2021 early 2022, like writing threads about super rare art being like historical and getting VCs to come in to buy stuff for millions of dollars. Like we don't see that right now. um I mean, but we have seen things like, a couple alien punks selling for over a few thousand ETH. Like that's still pretty cool to see. We see people like Canvas accumulating grails across every genre of digital art. Like there is stuff like that that makes me very hopeful. It's just we got a little over our skis last cycle, and I think people realized that, and then they started to zoom out a bit more and be more intentional and thoughtful. I mean, Beeple, another great example. Beeple's having events every quarter or so in Charleston where everyone knows he sold a piece for 69 million, but then he has to pay like 30 plus million in taxes on that shit. And then he puts like 10 plus million of what's left into his own facility in Charleston. I mean, that's as good of an outcome in a steward as you could hope for. Um, and
Yeah.
everywhere you look, you can either choose to be pessimistic and look at super rare and foundation pending auctions or current auctions and see that they're not getting a lot of love. But then you can also zoom out and see, over a 5-year horizon, where are we versus where we were in 2019? And it's still a upward trajectory, even though we're not like maintaining the velocity or acceleration that we had in 2021, 2022.
Yeah, I think a lot of that energy is like moved to simpler ways of getting the same satisfaction. Like, Pump Down Fun coin doesn't need a generative collection. It doesn't need 150 traits. It doesn't need marketing beyond degens on Twitter. Like, it doesn't need anything. It's like the purest form of degeneracy and gambling, essentially, that we were getting from trading NFTs back in like 2021, 2022. And then I think that all that, led to people being more interested in digital art. But, I really love your take. I think like there's definitely still core players here really building that are in it for the art. And I'm bullish overall. Like I'm super bullish on art. I think that it will continue to be on everyone's mind share as everything moves forward. And whether the degen liquidity is in art or not doesn't even really matter, I guess. Like whether where my vans go, type projects launch and go from 0 to 100 plus ETH. Maybe it doesn't even matter. Maybe it's just about like not even about the PvP when it comes to the art in that aspect anymore, because everyone can get that from meme coins. So maybe it's just about the art as we all wished for. Finally.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, as long as you're looking in the right places, you'll find it. Like it's going to be a slow burn, and maybe there will be a time like 2021 again too. But I think if your expectations are lower and you just surround yourself with people who you ideologically align with, then like you really can't lose. I don't know of anybody who like came into this space and dislikes art more now or dislikes the art ecosystem
Yeah.
more now than when they joined. Like that, even people who might not be getting sales or might not be doing great on ROI as collectors, like they like the connections they've made with people and they see a ton of value in continuing to foster those relationships and do stuff. So I'm super bullish on it, even though it seems like it's quiet or not as hot as it used to be.
Yeah. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on, being number one on the In It 5 the Art pod, man. And mad respect to you. I'll definitely listen to this one back a couple times. And I think there's a lot of golden nuggets that you dropped. I always appreciate your perspectives, man. And like I said, dude, I think you're a very sound voice in this space. And you're someone who's pushed this space forward. And Godspeed, brother. So thanks again for coming.
Dude, thank you, man. Always nice to talk to you.
All right, bro. I'll talk to you again soon, man.
Take care.